further ado, this video is going to focus on everything that we did specifically regarding Projekt ZRA. And so we're talking about OBS Studio. We're talking about the stuff you see on screen here, all the different graphics and overlays and the little fidgets and animations and all the different things and the thought that we put behind it. Again, we're going to try to limit this to about 15 minutes tops. So without further ado, let's just dive into it. So we're going to cover them scene by scene, as well as once we get to the display scene, we can showcase how OBS Studio looks now. Okay, so, and then after this video, by the way, look forward to one that covers backup. So how to back up OBS Studio, updating backups for OBS Studio in a portable folder and so on and so forth. So what you see here is, first of all, this is a new screen, a new scene. Stuttering right now because I had a very heavy day yesterday regarding the relationships and stress disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So I'm finding myself dissociating, but we have some stuff here that's all regarding a new scene. And then afterwards, we'll showcase the scene that was what we've been using for the most part the past week. So right here is the scene that we made a lot of edits to, and that's the scene, I call it the backdrop. Technically, it's kind of like the room behind me. That's kind of what it actually covers. It showcases mostly the highlights supposed to be my face. This is used for reactions. So whenever I'm watching a show, especially right now, Attack on Titan Studio Gek, I know they are having some updates right now, right here over there. That's definitely something that I am trying to get to, but I know that we're kind of behind setbacks and everything. But this is the screen that we would use, the scene, sorry, that we would use for reactions. So you can see now some main changes here. Over here, this browser border has been magnified by another, maybe at least 20% width and height. And so this time it's now a sizable portion. Before it was like 20%. Now it's about 25, a quarter of the screen dedicated to what we're watching. So you can see what I'm watching much more clearer. The screen's just bigger. And then on top of that, in order to accommodate for that, of course, we had to get more of our face coverage by moving this app over here, this interactive widget with all the music, I guess you can see over here, further up to the top left. The biggest change in this scene is that we have up here, you can see all the blended chat. So there's a chat overlay there that we have incorporated, and we're linking it through using, I believe, a YouTube's widget that allows us to take the chat overlay and display it. Now it looks pretty ugly if I take away the blending. If I give an example of that right now, I could probably just right click here and let's see, turn off the blending mode to normal. And you can see now it just looks like the regular YouTube overlay, which is not very good. So we can switch it over to additive or subtract, and that's how we can showcase this later when we get to the display scene. So it's kind of see-through now and transparent, the entire user interface except for the text. And then as for the very bottom, you can see that there's still the usual overlay, but now there's also this new, it's supposed to be an animation, but it's kind of frozen in right now. It says, thanks to all my supporters, subscribers. So what I'm going to do, this is actually a source from Stream Elements that that's a new feature that they've been trying to market. So long story short, it allows you to basically create a widget like this that says, gives appreciation and gratitude to your subscribers, your watchers, your viewers, and so on and so forth. Now what you can do, so my widget here is actually synced. It's just a reference source that's used between all the different scenes. So once I change this source, it will basically have the same changes be implemented across the different scenes because we're using the same source across different scenes, just using a reference. We didn't duplicate it. So what I'm going to try to do right now is if I'm going to open the filters or properties, sorry, I'm going to switch it from, there's a check mark for looping the animation, but there's also one for making sure that the graphic does not display, so that shows nothing after the playback ends. So I'm going to check that off, and now it's going to play, and it's running, and now it's going to disappear. Well, in about 20 seconds. There it goes. So now it's gone. Now if we switch to different scenes, so we're done with this scene here, we're going to swap over to Windows. It should be able to play again if we wanted to. So once again, there's just a little button and it shows up. And in this scene, this is the Windows scene here, right? You can see that it's slightly different. It's basically the same thing as the backdrop scene, but this Windows scene is all about Windows, right? It's about interfaces. And we can see that there's, first of all, a widget down here that's basically more like a branded custom graphic that has an image and has a message, not an image story. So in this case, it says, enjoy and savor every aspect or moment of life. I got my pitch back. Don't save it. There's no system to get a refund on an unused life. So it displays some kind of motivational, inspirational thing that's relevant to the Project ZRA, especially for people going through rough times. That's kind of what it is all about anyways. And then the next thing we can do is we have over here on the side, at the very top, there is, you can see a subtractive blending. So the texture is black, but it is still blended into the graphic, into the scene, so that you can actually read what's being said very vaguely. In the backdrop, however, if we decide to turn off the chat overlay, you can see there's a beautiful graphic here of some, I wish it were traditional Chinese writing, but it's not. It's actually just simplified. But anyways, it doesn't matter. The point is, there's this great, aesthetic banner here that meshes really well with the colors and the scenery and the general brand and aesthetic of Projekt ZRA, and previously was the ZRA project. So I like it. I put it over here, and kind of highlights a bit of the atmosphere that I want to paint and portray on Projekt ZRA as a place of solace for those seeking refuge. So we're going to show the chat display once more time, and then the very bottom here, you can see, of course, compared to display, it is slightly smaller. The screen, the little windows here is just a little bit, it's shifted, but it's also smaller. The truth is, both of these screens, despite being smaller, are actually larger than what we had in the previous pre-edited videos. So the videos prior to this one right now, those had a very, very small, tiny little screen. Again, it was like 20% of the screen, and it was very hard to watch. Okay. Additionally, I can also say that I've also I've organized all the sources, and we're going to see that very shortly right now. But all the sources have been rearranged, and many of them have been renamed, and in addition to new graphics being added, so we have new sources, most of which are graphics. Again, you can see over here on the left-hand side with the widget, with the branded graphic, as well as the traditional Chinese or the simplified Chinese kind of aesthetic image over there on the side. So both of these are new graphics. But in addition, I want to mention quickly that, of course, down here, we've also organized our scene sources so that we have the display as well as the browser tabs available to switch easily back and forth. So for example, if I want to go from Edge to display, so the Edge browser, you can see I just got rid of that, and quickly I can shift over to display, and behind that there's really nothing, but you can see that. So there's a backdrop here. Very easily I can just turn everything off. So Edge and display and so on and so forth. Okay. So this is the second scene. We're just going to quickly skim through all the scenes here, and this is the one where you're going to have to see, we're going to be talking probably the most until we end off this video. Basically at the edge up there, right up there, as well as below, there's this little red border, and that red border is just the magnified border overlay. So let me show you what would happen if I decide to show it. There's a border overlay over here somewhere. Border overlay. Yep. So now we can see above me and below, the graphic has disappeared, right? And that's actually the same border that I'm using for these two as well. Okay, and you can find this all in Stream Elements. Once again, this is not my own assets. These are assets that are free to use, freely available for all streamers. Just go to literally, just go to streamelements.com, and then they'll have a huge variety of selections that you can choose from. Mine is probably one of the more basic ones. You probably want to choose something that's a little bit more flashy, I guess, or more suitable for your personality. I just want to be more down to earth, I guess you could say. Especially here, you can see, once again, I just closed off for the backdrop scene. I just got rid of the border overlay, which if I ever want to, I can throw it back on very easily, just like that. And I maximized it in such a way that you can see that there's a very tiny rim here on the side. There's just like a little 1 pixel width worth of red on either side over here on the left and right, but there's like maybe more about like 10 pixel widths of the border above and below, and that's just a stylization thing that I want to do. Okay, so we can get rid of that. Again, I want this to be a very basic. I don't want this to this scene here is supposed to be entirely focused on like reactions and stuff like that. I'll think about whether or not I want to maintain this red border, but regardless of whether or not I do or don't want it, it's very quick and fast and easy to toggle this on and off. Again, you can toggle the borders around the windows as well, but that's something that's supposed to stay on. So this can be easily toggled on and off. Okay. So we'll think about this when we're doing reactions, but okay. All right, let's get back to the display scene. Basically, you can see that this display scene also has the border overlay above and below, but we also have many border overlays for all the different windows, especially on the display, on the window scene. And over here, if I could show you the display scene for the sources, for the window scene, there would be so many sources. There's like, looks like 8 different image sources. So over here in display, you can see only there's like 2. The privacy graphic is an image and the border overlay is an image, but there's actually 8 of them in the window scene. And that's to cover for all the borders, because every single border is just a transparent image. And then every single image here that we have that is like custom graphics, like the rose on the side and the red leaves of the Chinese, festival thing on the left is it's all just more images. Okay. Last but not least, let's go back down here. It's just a bunch of stuff that's all fairly old. So all of these are visual captures. So we have renamed the browser to the browser source to Edge. So Microsoft Edge, as opposed to me saying, for example, it used to be called like live stream browser. And that's very important because I noticed that I barely ever switch to Twitch on the browser tab. I usually use it to display something else, such as like YouTube videos or a Reddit page or my emails, right? Or a draft of it, maybe not the full email, or a blog article, or I'm just sifting on Google search or whatever. So it was very misleading for me every time I see that it says live stream browser. I'm like, oh, that's not quite right. We don't want that, but actually we are looking for that. We just want a browser. So we decided to rename it. The rest of the stuff here I barely use, so you see they're all turned off. And then there's necessities. Again, the necessities are all synced by their names. So actually N1, N2, N4, renamed it once, and then it's just synchronized across. All right, the last 2 scenes that we want to cover here. Intermission. Is there no? So intermission here is very straightforward, right? You can see that basically there's almost no changes here, but I barely ever use the scene at all. Wow, I really like the fact that I'm putting the earphones down here, because it's definitely not only does it actually fits the branding very well because it's a red and black, but most importantly, it just frees up. I look so insane if I put this on because there's this red napkin on my headphones. So that's what that's all about. But I noticed that putting it around my neck is so much better. It's got this bulk to it. I noticed that I'm slacking. But it fits like the atmosphere that I bring to. So for example, in this scene here, this is the intermission scene where I would be interacting with people. There's a chat below. That's a new thing now, right? This intermission scene, you can see that the chat overlay is directly below the scene. It's also reversed. So I'm looking from right to left as opposed to left to right. So it's a transverse flip. But the most important, and then of course at the very top left, there is still that usual, browser showing. So this scene hasn't changed a lot. I just add overlay. But while I'm here, I might as well talk about the fact that, putting the earphones down here just seems so much more real, right? I feel like I'm so like dialed in as like a different character when I put on these headphones on, and when I put it down, it just feels like I'm more down to earth. Precisely because there aren't things like there isn't this weird round thing. This headset is very wide. I want to talk about in a different video later on today, a different pair of headsets I purchased and how we're going to use those instead, as opposed to this one. This one might just be a prop that will hang around our neck from now on or something like that. I don't intend on using this any more than over the next 48 hours, because within the next day or two, I'm going to take a shower and then I'm going to wipe down this headphone. I'm going to start using the new headphones, which we'll showcase in another video. So this is just the general image, myself fitting inside the notion of the project itself, right? The project is actually a manifestation of myself as well. So it's like we're 1 and 2 combined, right? There's like a unison here. There's some coherence between me and my project and the venture that I'm creating here. Continuity. And then last but not least, we have the notification, where right now you can't see anything at all. It just says be right back, taking a short break, stay tuned, and therefore there's no need for a chat. But what I do want to do is I realize maybe it's helpful to do that. So I'm going to go live right now. I'm going to go over here to the right hand side. You can barely see it. I'm going to showcase what I would do. So I would double click. I would copy the link, the URL, right? This is how you guys would add any sort of browser widget source, browser or source or widget over to your OBS Studio anyways. And then we just switch scenes over to the notifications. And then we're gonna add a new scene. Okay, I know you just can't see this, so I guess I don't have to show you this, but anyways, I'm just going to the sources. I'm clicking add to the browser and 00.011 chat overlay, naming it, and scene 4, I guess you could say. All right. Paste the link, and that'll be it. Now, one thing I should mention briefly, I'm going to switch back and forth, is that when you want to resize the chat, so for example, right here, you can drag and across the corners, but what I've learned from Michael Freyer and Michael Fayer, he has a channel, just like Gaming Careers focuses on like OBS tutorials and stuff. Michael focuses his channel entirely, I believe, on streaming tools and so on and so forth, so especially OBS plugins. And thanks to him, I know how to resize and reshape different aspects on OBS using, different commands. So for example, we can resize as normal. That I already knew. I also knew you could press shift and resize, and what that does is that resizes without proportion. So you can really stretch things around like that. And if you let go of the switch, let go of the shift, it just bounces back to the right corresponding proportions. So default proportions like this, if I hold shift, I can make it any proportions I want, even if the text looks really long or very stretched out, or so on and so forth, right? And then there's another one, so you can press Alt. So there's just dragging as usual. You can drag with shift and you can also drag with Alt. And what happens with Alt is if you press Alt and you drag, you can actually expand the actual graphic within the actual widget. So what I'm going to do is head over to notifications and just kind of do that. I'm going to go ahead, and you can't see this right now, but I'm turning it over to additive. So that's blending in. I'm holding the Alt key and cutting it down to size, the chat widget, to the appropriate size that I'm looking for. And then I'm just going to move it and resize it accordingly across the entire page. Okay. So that's about it for this particular video, I think. And I know you can't see anything right now, so what I'm going to do is just hop over back in a moment after but you can see that I'm just resizing the whole thing right now, and that's good. Okay, I don't know if I want it centered like that, but yeah, we can keep it centered. All right, so that's everything right there. That being said, thanks for tuning into this video. There's a lot behind the scenes stuff. I believe we're gonna end it off in this scene here. And yeah, so I don't really know exactly what specifically I would use this scene for, to be honest, but we'll figure something out. The next video, again, we're gonna cover more on the project, but that time we'll be going over the tabs and all the research you have to do to get things sorted out. So I can see that it's probably about 25 minutes, this video, and we'll call it quits now. So thanks for tuning in. And this is Projekt ZRA, and I'm signing out. Peace.